Hey team, welcome back. Dave here. And I want to do something a little bit different today. I actually want to share a story about me. And I guess maybe I do that already, but this one is just to give you some insight of why minimalism and why minimalistic leadership. There's two parts to this story, and they'll make sense as I pull them together. But the first part of this story finds me in 2015, 2016. I was in an arc of burnout. I didn't know it at the time, but I was. I had a new kiddo and work was intense. I was commuting 2, 3 hours a day. I would be up before my family. I'd be out of the house before my family was up. And I'd get home at dinner time and I was in a role in talent development where I was helping with workshops. So there was a lot of extended hours and a lot of grinding early, grinding late, rarely weekend stuff. But the reality is that I was just exhausted. And part of this was the scenario of a kiddo who had trouble sleeping. It would be years before that actually changed. But in the midst of this burnout and feeling that simultaneous overwhelm and drought, it's one of the things that we can distinguish between stress and burnout. When we get to burnout, there's not enough of anything. When we're in stress and overwhelm, really, there's too much of everything. But there's a tipping point where that overwhelm becomes burnout, where we have too much and then we don't have enough. We don't have enough time. We don't have enough energy. We don't have enough emotional reserve. So I was moving into that not enough. And at that time, I also found minimalism. There was the Minimalist documentary on Netflix, and it was a helpful counterpoint. What if instead of doing more, I did less? Now it seems simple and relatively intuitive. And let's be clear, this is not a new concept, but it was a new concept for me. And I started where lots of folks started. I started with my clothes, funny enough. And I did a Project 333, which is for 3 months, you wear 33 different pieces of clothing, and that's all you have access to. And it really was this moment of freedom and liberation I had clear closet for home time and work time. And I just didn't have to spend the energy worrying about either one. Because if I was going to go to work, I had 15 to 16 different pieces of clothes, which included shoes and socks and pants and dress shirts and ties. I was in an office environment where it was button down tie, and it was totally doable. And frankly, after that 3 months, I never went back. I may have changed up which clothes were in rotation for the next 3 months, but really I pretty much thinned down my closet to half or less than of what I had. And that was great. I picked clothes that helped reflect who I am and had good utility for what I needed, kept me warm, kept me cool, whatever it is. Looked nice, relatively simple. And that was my introduction. And so that started and that went for a bit. But when it went into the next level for me was after my car accident. And I've talked a little bit about the car accident here before. In 2017, I had this serious car accident on Groundhog's Day. Thank goodness I don't repeat that day after day. But I had initially a lot of pain in my chest and back. I would come to learn that I had torn my long thoracic nerve. And, almost years later, I'm still working on my occupational therapy to improve that. Pain is better. It's not non-existent. I still take medication for it. But the real point of change was the concussion that went undiagnosed and unregarded, frankly, which is, I guess, a little bit frightening in retrospect. But one of the things that I came to realize 2 years into my recovery wasn't just my shoulder and that thoracic nerve that was damaged. I had hit my head pretty hard somewhere in the car, and it just wasn't obvious. And maybe it was just the restraint in my brain hitting my skull. But I lost my vision for a bit. Vision went to black. I didn't lose consciousness, but I couldn't see for a while. while I was still trapped in the car. And come to realize then, a year, 2 years on, as I've started to manage my pain better, I've started to sort of recover emotionally from the impact of the accident. It's probably worth exploring that in a different moment. But my brain doesn't work the way it used to before the accident. It's much harder to read. I don't remember nearly as well as I used to. I'm not as sharp, and I don't pierce complexity. I'm not able to pull ideas together or see through complexity in the same ways that I used to. And really, this identity that I had built up until that point, um, almost 40 years, was gone. And now I met myself, into my 40s as this new person almost. My brain worked in a way that was just very different than it had before. And I couldn't get by in the ways that I used to. And then enter minimalism. It was one of two breaths of real fresh air and recovery that I had when I came to terms with my brain doesn't work the way it used to. Minimalism is one, and self-compassion is the other. I want to stick with minimalism for now. That shift with minimalism for me looked like, okay, I can't do as much. I have to do less because I can't do as much. How do I focus on what's most important? How do I expend the energy, the mental bandwidth that I do still have on fewer things so I can actually really be successful in those? I can't juggle as many things as I used to. I can't power through situations the way I used to. I can't keep up with that demand. And it brought me to a place where I really started to appreciate that same sort of freedom that I experienced with my wardrobe. As I focused on fewer things, as I got clearer on what's really essential and being able to define why things were essential, life just got better. It was calmer. I was more confident in the things that I was doing. I had more courage to really dive into and not be afraid of my limitations. I recognized that my limitations were an asset in the process I was doing now. And so that's what I did. I really looked at how do we free ourselves through less, through having less, through doing less, and how do we then create more space to do the things that actually we really care about, that really matter. And one of the things that I really care about is leadership. And why? Because good leaders make our lives better. And our good leadership skills make our lives better and the lives of the people around us. We have the most ripple effect when we spend time to build our ability to lead ourselves and others. And so I've really started from there to dedicate myself to how do we use minimalism to make us even more powerful, compelling, focused leaders who can have more joy and more calm and more fulfillment. You see, that's one of the things that lies on the other side of having less and doing less. And it may seem contradictory or impossible or theoretical or fanciful. Dave, I don't buy it. That's not how life really works. But the thing is, it is. It's what I found. It's how I recovered and even live a better life than I did before the accident. Do I miss the capacity to think and read and process in the way that I used to? Absolutely. It was always sort of a fun moment for me to be able to dive into really complex ideas or books and see them. Not totally unlike the Matrix. Now, I'm not trying to overstate my capacity, but the joy was sort of the puzzle piece of it. Here's a complex, deep, dense thing. And what if I open it up and then see a path through it? That brought me and still brings me so much delight. That life of the mind experience. It's why I went into academia, right? But the thing that I have now with a life that incorporates these same principles of minimalism that I repeat over and over again is so much better than the life that I had that was driving me deeper and deeper into overwhelm and burnout. not unlike the first time when I shifted into minimalism with my wardrobe, right? The shift that I made mentally and emotionally with focusing on minimalism really is a way of intellectual life, of interactive and relational life. That opened doors I didn't even know existed. And so that's why minimalism. And I think maybe another way to describe this is relational minimalism. How am I in relation to myself, to others, to things around me, to the environment, to society, to culture, to conflict? And how do we use minimalism to guide us in being thoughtful and effortful in those relationships where it's essential, where it really matters, and giving ourselves permission to identify and let go of all the things that are non-essential or junk. And for ourselves, I call that junk bullshit, right? What's all the bullshit that gets in our way day to day that we keep investing time and energy and emotional capacity into that gives us nothing? I can't say that I don't have moments where I'm investing in those beliefs, ideas, or commitments that are based on nonsense. But I'm so much better now at recognizing when I'm doing it and giving myself permission to just stop and let it go. So that's me for today. I hope there's something in this that was useful for you all, and I look forward to next time. Take care.